A defenseless toddler stumbled across the grass toward a massive Doberman standing near the flower bed. His parents froze on the patio, their breath catching in their throats. The powerful guard dog lowered his head, his cropped ears swiveling like radar dishes. And what the dog did next shocked the entire family. "Zeus, heel," Sarah called out nervously as her son Leo began toddling unsteadily across the backyard. The Doberman stood like a statue, 90 pounds of coiled muscle bred to be a sentry, a weapon if the situation demanded it. Leo was barely 18 months old, wearing a bright blue t-shirt and a diaper. His chubby legs moved with that clumsy, determined toddler run, his wide eyes fixed on the dog with pure delight. He giggled, a sound that usually brought joy but now brought only tension. "Sarah, get him," David said from the grill, his voice tight. "I'm trying," Sarah whispered. "Zeus, heel." They'd had Zeus for 5 years. 5 years of loyalty, obedience, and unwavering devotion. Dobermans were Velcro dogs. They bonded intensely with their families, following them from room to room, never wanting to be separated. But they were also bred as guard dogs, protectors, and that protective instinct could be unpredictable, especially around small children. Their veterinarian had been direct. "Zeus is well trained," Dr. Morrison had said during Leo's 6-month checkup. "But he's also a 90-pound guard dog with powerful jaws. As Leo gets more mobile, you need to be vigilant. One snap, even a warning snap, could be catastrophic." Sarah had felt sick hearing those words. David had been quieter about his concerns, but she'd noticed the way he watched Zeus whenever Leo was in the room, the way he positioned himself between them during playtime, the subtle tension in his shoulders whenever Leo crawled too close to the dog's food bowl. 3 months ago, something had happened that made their anxiety spike. Leo had screamed, a high-pitched wail of pain and shock, after hitting his head on the coffee table. Zeus had reacted. The Doberman had been across the room, but in an instant he was there, standing over Leo, his body rigid, a low growl rumbling from his chest. Not at Leo, at Sarah. When she'd rushed forward to pick up her crying son, Zeus had blocked her path just for a second, his body tense, his eyes locked on her hands. "Zeus, move," she'd commanded, her voice shaking. He'd obeyed, but slowly, reluctantly. Sarah had scooped up Leo, her heart pounding. That night they'd had the conversation Sarah had been dreading. "Maybe we should rehome him," David had said, his voice heavy. "Just until Leo's older, until he can defend himself if something goes wrong." Sarah had cried at the thought. Zeus had been with them since he was a puppy. He was family. But Leo was their son. "Let's give it more time," she'd finally said. "We'll watch them closely. If anything else happens, anything at all, we'll make the decision." David had agreed. But the tension had never fully left. Today had started strangely. Zeus had been pacing since dawn, restless in a way Sarah had never seen before. He kept going to the back door, staring out at the yard, whining softly. "What's wrong with him?" Sarah had asked David over breakfast. But Zeus hadn't eaten his breakfast. That was unusual. Sarah had knelt beside him, checking for signs of illness. No fever, no limping. His nose was cool and wet. "Maybe he's just having an off day," she'd murmured, scratching behind his ears. But the feeling of unease had stayed with her all morning. Now, watching her son toddle toward the dog, that unease transformed into full-blown terror. Because today Zeus stood frozen. He glanced at Sarah for a split second when she called his name, then deliberately turned his head away. He chose to disobey. "He's ignoring you," David said, stepping forward, panic rising in his voice. "He's locking on," Sarah breathed. Leo made a squealing sound, his small hands reaching out as he picked up speed. He was getting closer to the edge of the tall ornamental grass where Zeus stood. "Leo, stop!" Sarah screamed, stepping off the patio. "Come to mommy." But Leo wasn't interested. His eyes were locked on Zeus. "Doggy. Doggy." Zeus's cropped ears swiveled hard to the right. He wasn't looking at the baby anymore. He was listening to something Sarah's ears couldn't catch. A faint dry rustle in the dead leaves. His head lowered, the muscles in his neck bunching tight like steel cables. He didn't wag his tail. He didn't pant. He just watched with a predator's intensity that made Sarah's blood run cold. "David, do something." Sarah gasped. But David was frozen too. Sarah knew Zeus was a trained protector. She'd seen him alert on strangers at the door, seen him position himself between her and potential threats on evening walks. But watching those alert ears twitch now, that statue-still posture, it looked like a wolf deciding when to strike. "If I run, he triggers," Sarah said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Prey drive. If Leo runs, Zeus chases." She'd read about it in her research. Guard dogs, especially breeds like Dobermans, had strong prey drives. Fast movement could trigger an instinctive chase response. And once triggered, they didn't stop. "He's waiting for him to get closer," David whispered, horrified. 3 feet. Zeus shifted his weight, loading his hindquarters. His nub of a tail was perfectly still. His entire body was a coiled spring, tense, ready to explode. His muscles vibrated so hard Sarah could see his black skin twitching beneath his short coat. He was fighting something, fighting his own training or preparing to use it. Sarah's mind flashed to the news stories she'd read late at night when she couldn't sleep. Family dog attacks toddler. Doberman mauls child. Owner says dog had never shown aggression before. "No," she breathed. "No, no, no." Leo reached out with one chubby hand, stumbling over a tree root but catching himself. His smile was so trusting, so completely oblivious to the beast watching him. To Sarah, everything seemed to slow down. She could see individual blades of grass bending under Leo's small feet. Could see the afternoon sunlight catching on Zeus's sleek coat. Could see the subtle tremor in the dog's powerful shoulders. "Zeus down?" Sarah screamed, using her most authoritative voice, the command that always worked. Zeus didn't even blink. His obsession was focused entirely on something on the ground directly in front of Leo's feet. His lip curled up, revealing the full length of his canine teeth, those teeth that could crush bone. 2 feet. "We have to grab him," David said, his voice cracking. "Sarah, we have to. If we move too fast, Zeus will react," Sarah said, tears streaming down her face. "I don't know what to do. I don't know." Leo was right there now. The toddler looked impossibly fragile next to the chest of the lean, muscular dog. Sarah's vision tunneled. This was it. This was the moment she'd been dreading for months. "David," she screamed. "I'm going." David yelled, sprinting across the grass. But even as he ran, Sarah knew he wouldn't make it in time. Zeus was too close. Leo was too small. It would be over in seconds. Then everything happened at once. Leo took the final step, his foot landing in the ivy. "Mine?" he said, reaching for Zeus. "No." Sarah screamed, her voice raw. A rustle in the ivy, louder now, unmistakable, triggered the explosion. Zeus didn't bark. He launched. The Doberman's body blurred into motion, covering the distance in a heartbeat. He opened his massive jaws wide, aiming directly at Leo's stumbling legs. It looked like a direct attack. Sarah closed her eyes, unable to watch her worst nightmare come true. Snap. The sound of jaws clapping shut was louder than a pistol shot. Leo was knocked violently backward by the dog's shoulder, landing hard on his back in the grass. For 2 seconds nobody breathed. The world stopped. Sarah fell to her knees. "Leo," she shrieked, her voice breaking. David slid to a halt, grabbing Leo and yanking him into his arms, spinning away from the dog, shielding him with his own body. But Zeus didn't pursue them. He stood his ground, shaking, adrenaline coursing through his 90-pound frame. He kept his head low, pinning something to the earth with his front paws. He was growling now, a deep, guttural rumble, not of aggression but of victory. David checked Leo frantically, his hands trembling. "Is he bit?" Sarah screamed. "David, is he bit?" Leo was crying from the shove and the shock, but his legs, there were no marks, no blood, nothing. "He's fine," David breathed, disbelief flooding his voice. "He's not hurt." Sarah crawled forward on her hands and knees, her vision blurred with tears. "David, look at the ground." Zeus remained frozen, his muscular leg pressed firmly into the ivy, holding something down. Only when David moved Leo away, far away, did Zeus step back. Lying in the grass, severed cleanly in half, was a copperhead snake. "Dead." "Oh my God," Sarah whispered. "He heard it," David said, his voice shaking. "He ignored us because he heard the snake." Zeus hadn't aimed for the boy's leg. He had intercepted the strike. Sarah looked at the dog, then at her son, then back at the snake. "He saved him," she breathed. Zeus looked up at them, panting, the adrenaline fading. The intense predator look was gone. He trotted over to Leo, his nub tail wagging furiously. Leo, still crying, reached out his tiny arms. "Hug," he sniffled. Zeus moved slowly, his head lowered, his chest dropping to the grass. He made himself as small as 90 pounds of muscle could be until finally his head came to rest gently within Leo's arms. Leo squealed and buried his face into Zeus's coat. Sarah collapsed back onto the grass. "He understood," David breathed. Leo patted the dog's head. "Good doggy." David looked at Zeus, then at the snake. "I'm sorry for doubting you, boy." Sarah knelt beside them. "You're his guardian, aren't you?" From that day forward, nobody in that house ever doubted who Leo's protector was. Zeus, 90 pounds of sleek muscle, alert ears, and absolute devotion. A Velcro dog who had chosen his human and would protect him with everything he had. Did you enjoy this story? Do you believe dogs are guardian angels? Yes or no? Let us know in the comments below. If you like the story, subscribe to this channel and leave a like. Thanks so much for listening. See you in the next video. Have a great day.